everybody. Oh, man, that's good. Well, I got my decals from Steve Iverson at Cult TV Man for the Apollo. Let's take a look at them. Just took a super quick look last night. Now we get this nice big booklet, which I assume has all the instructions or a bunch of other stuff in it. And here are the actual decals. And of course they're far more detailed than the set that came with the model, and they're brand new. So now I need to get cracking on sanding down that, sand down little rough edges and go ahead and get it painted. You know what? I noticed a lot of you guys had really good luck with Krylon, and so did I with my chimney, or the Mercury, my big Atomic City Mercury. So I think I'm just going to get some Krylon. Since the thing's already white, and I'm going to be covered in white, I don't think I need to prime it. Maybe you can still twist the parts and break it into sections, so I can get them apart. And I don't think priming it's going to be necessary. Well, then again, if you hit it with black, and then if I painted the inside black as a light block, but I'm not lighting it from the inside, and the thing's pretty thick plastic, so I don't think that's an issue. So yeah, well, if I'm going to just use, yeah. Heck, we might even have the black Krylon here at the house already, and I've used that stuff. It's pretty good. Those off the shelf regular hardware store paints have gotten pretty good. The had a viewer ask about World War One for aircraft World War One crew figures. I forget. I think he said 148 scale, because he has not been able to find any good ones. We all know there's a ton of good 148 scale World War II and Korean War stuff, but he was asking if I would ask you, put in the comment section, guys, where's a good source for 148 scale World War One figures. So if you got any suggestions on that, drop a line below. And I want to thank Mr. Bursch. I hope I'm saying that right. I had mentioned after doing the goats, the GTOs, that the high school beater I had was my grandmother's old car, 64 Polara. And turns out he had one in his stash, and he's for reasons not able to build it. So he offered to send it to me. So I'm like, wow, that's great. I'll get it and look at the kit. I don't know what I'll do with it yet, but if it's got stock options, I'll probably make it like my grandmother's car, including all like the way I drove to school, which includes the dings and patinas. At some point, I've been watching a few videos on these guys who make these beautiful cars. And some of the prettiest ones I saw, again, the guy, he just uses primer, Krylon, and Krylon clear, everything Krylon, so there's no problems with mixing, with chemical reaction. And I saw someone was working on it. You cannot argue with success. I'm sure there are some super modelers out there that are cringing, how can you not airbrush it? But I think I'm going to have to do a couple more cars because, of course, obviously, if you're using rattle cans or Krylon or whatever, then something pre-made, you can only make what colors are available. You can't mix your own. So I can totally understand why some people prefer to use the airbrush. You get a little more control. But the flip side of that is, if you're mixing your own color, anyone who's ever mixed paints knows it's virtually impossible to get two paint mixes to match perfectly. So you got to make sure you made enough to finish the project. and because if you come up short and have to remix it, the odds of getting it to match perfectly, unless I suppose there's some folks out there who really know what they're doing, but I've never been able to catch lightning in a bottle twice. Of course, I never caught lightning in a bottle the first time, but see, I grew up switching gears here. I grew up in Florida, and of course, I was a space kid. Born in '61, I was, friggin' 8 years old when they landed on the moon, which, as far as I'm concerned, is the perfect age to be when something exciting like that happens, because you're young enough to be completely in awe of what's going on, and old enough that you can appreciate what's going on. And being here in Florida, of course, you have to remember this before the days of the interstates and everything, but I never saw a Saturn launch. But just the idea that I'm watching on TV, just knowing it was just a few hours down the road. Well, back in those days, it would been more like about 5-6 hours, because we were up in the Panhandle near Tallahassee, so we couldn't just go outside and watch it. But the only night launch of an Apollo was the last manned Apollo, which was 17. That was Gene Cernan and Harrison Jack Schmitt and Ron Evans. And Ron Evans was the command module pilot. Cernan and Schmitt were the last two American astronauts on the moon, Cernan likes to say, or like to say so far. And there's always been a little joke about them. Now, Cernan, being the mission commander, got out first to the lunar module, which was the way it worked, and then Jack Schmitt came out after him. So Jack Schmitt says, well, I was the last man on the moon, and because he was the last guy to pop off the lunar module onto the moon. But for coordinate protocol, Jack went back inside the lunar module prior to departure. They were at the Valley of Torres Littrow, and anyway, then Cernan gave his fairly famous speech about, that we came, it's sort of like Neil, and that we're the last ones for now. Hope people remember this, that we did this for humanity, not for America. And something that I forget the exact speech. Pretty good little speech, and then he says, "Godspeed, crew, Apollo 17 up the ladder." So he's the last human being to stand on the moon. And they always used to joke. Jack would say, "I was the last man on the moon because I was the last man to hop off onto the moon," and Cernan would say, "Well, I was the last man on the moon because I was the last guy standing there." And I'm sure it was a friendly little thing. But after learning about that little bit of trivia, I was kind of like, well, you could say that Jack was the last man on the moon, and Cernan was the last man off the moon. But in fact, Cernan wrote a book, which I have, "The Last Man on the Moon," and it's hard for me to put in words how enamored with all of that I was. I mean, we had a trampoline in our front yard as a kid, and I can remember when the missions were going, I'd lay out on it, the other kids, and look up at the moon, and I was so just enraptured with the idea that between here and the moon is this tiny little tin can with 3 living human beings in it on their way there. And I wanted to be inside that capsule with the astronauts. That's the place I most wanted to be in the universe. Not a lot's changed. But now, I know there are a lot of real space modelers out there, and I believe Real Space Models, I think it's the name of it, is in Tallahassee, which is, like I say, I'm from 20 miles away. And I cannot believe that I've never gone and met this guy. I got to do some research, because find out, get in contact with him, because not only do I want to build a Vanguard, but which he had a Vanguard, And this is, of course, a resin company like Fantastic Plastic, so the stuff's expensive because they're made on a small scale. But a friend of mine asked me to build him a model of a stagecoach just recently. And in fact, it hasn't even showed up yet. It's due, I think, on the 27th. I won the eBay bid, and those Lindbergh stagecoaches are expensive. Those things run about $100. I got a little ticked because somebody was selling two pretty good ones for about $90 each, which is good, but they wanted $61 shipping. I'm like, huh? And it's domestic here in the U.S. But anyway, this other guy sent it the slow way, so it was only $20, but I'm not in a rush. I got so many models backed up. Some of you guys had mentioned that thing's real tricky to build, so I'm going to take my time with it. And so I'm supposed to make a nice thing on a plaque for him, you know, so the whole thing will be fixed on a kind of like a diorama. So anyway, I have to go to Tallahassee to deliver it to him, and I want to get it done. And I should double up on the chance to see if I can swing by the guy that makes Real Space, maybe pick up a few odds and ends. And plus, I like this, kind of like to see the place, just how he does it, if it's something you'd be interested in. Or maybe I can just order through the mail. Got so many projects cooking right now. But I apologize if I'm mumbling a little bit. One last thing before I go. I've had a few comments about the audio. Now, right now, I have a lavalier mic plugged into the phone, but it's about arm's length away from me because people were complaining about the slurping noises and the gulping noises, and even I noticed they were kind of annoying. And this thing is so sensitive, it still picks my voice up well. But sometimes when I shoot in the shed, I use a shotgun mic on the big camera I have in the shed, and some folks have had some problems with the echo and everything. They thought, why don't you use the lavalier mic? But a lot of times this stuff, remember this whole thing's done on the fly. I just leave the tripod in here with the mic wrapped around because I got one of those long cords on it so I can step away from it. And I never know when or where I'm going to do these things or much of what I'm going to talk about. So I'll if I can remember, I'll drag this tripod with the cord wrapped around it with a lav mic into the. I thought the shotgun mic was doing a good enough job, but also everybody has a different. Some people use headsets, some people use cell phones, and most people are like, no, the volume's fine, we can hear you fine. Some people, I can barely hear you because I'm using a cell phone. So the sound has turned out to be about the tricky of getting it consistent. But again, this is all very haphazard and ad hoc. When I do the videos, and I have another one scheduled to come out tomorrow morning on Strombeck Becker, and I just released the one on Tupolev, and before Sergey sent me that stuff, I had no idea Tupolev manufactured kit models. But anyway, the Strombeck Becker is one of several. Andy Anxious sent me a ton of information. This is just one thing I put together with it, and I'll probably be actually adding to it more later, and a lot of Aurora stories. And I think that's what I'm going to call that series with Andy's information on all the wild stuff that happened at Aurora, just Aurora stories. It just kind of rolls off the tongue. But that is all set up going directly into the computer with a professional microphone, and that's not portable. So that's that, guys. Y'all have a wonderful day. I'm off to physical therapy. And we will see you later. Oh, more coffee. Has the wife gone back to sleep? Can I sneak in another cup? Oh, you're still here. Nobody say anything.